The wind howled like something wounded outside, rattling the old windows of our little house on the edge of town. It was the kind of November night that bites through walls. The kind that makes you grateful for any scrap of warmth. The power had gone out 2 hours earlier, with a loud pop from the transformer down the road, plunging everything into darkness and killing the heater. I had lit every candle I could find, but they barely pushed back the cold that was seeping into my bones. My son, Ethan, was 22 now, home from university for the weekend. He had grown into a man I sometimes did not recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that quiet intensity he would carried since he was a boy. When the lights died, he had been sprawled on the couch in sweatpants and an old college hoodie, fooling on his phone until the battery gave up too. I remember looking at him across the flickering candlelight and feeling something tug inside my chest. Something I immediately pushed away. "Mom, it is freezing," he said, breath visible in the dim glow. "The spare room's like an icebox without the baseboard heater." He was right. The guest room was on the north side of the house and had always been impossible to heat. My bedroom was the only one with the old cast-iron radiator that still held some warmth from earlier in the evening, plus the thick down comforter I would splurged on last winter. I hesitated for half a second, then heard myself say the words before my brain caught up. "You can sleep in my room tonight. Just, gee. Stay on your side. Okay, it is only until the power comes back." He gave me that crooked half smile that used to melt me when he was 6 and wanted an extra cookie. "I am not 10 anymore, Mom. I think I can control myself." The joke landed heavier than he probably meant it to. I laughed too quickly and turned away to hide the sudden heat in my cheeks. I changed in the bathroom by candlelight, slipping into the warmest thing I owned, a long-sleeved silk nightgown, the color of midnight. It was softer than it had any right to be, sliding against my skin like a secret. When I came back, Ethan had already claimed the left side of the bed, hoodie discarded, wearing only a thin t-shirt and those gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips. The candle on the nightstand painted gold across the ridges of muscle along his arms. And I looked away too fast, nearly tripping over my own feet. I blew out all but one candle and crawled under the covers, keeping a careful foot of space between us. The mattress dipped under his weight, pulling me slightly toward the center whether I wanted it or not. The silence stretched, broken only by the storm and our breathing. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Fine, just cold." He shifted, and suddenly the gap between us shrank. I felt the heat rolling off his body like a furnace. My own skin prickled, hyper-aware of every inch. That was. Not touching, but easily could. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, trying to slow my pulse. Minutes crawled by. The temperature kept dropping. My toes were numb, even under 2 blankets. Without thinking, I inched closer to the warmth radiating from him. Just an inch, then another, until the silk of my nightgown brushed the cotton of his t-shirt. Ethan did not move away. I told myself it was nothing. Mothers and sons share warmth. It is survival. It is practical. But when the outside of his thigh settled against mine, solid and alive, something low in my belly tightened. I held my breath. "You are shivering," he murmured. "I am okay." "You are not." His voice was closer now, right at my ear. "Come here." Before I could protest, his arm slid across my waist, heavy and sure, pulling me back against his chest, spooning me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I should have said something, should have reminded him of boundaries. But the truth was, I had never felt anything as good as the heat of him pressed along my spine. My body betrayed me instantly, melting into him, the curve of my back fitting perfectly against his front. His breath stirred the fine hairs at my nape. Steady, warm, alive. I could feel the thud of his heart through the thin layers between us. Or maybe that was mine. Time blurred. The storm screamed outside, but inside the cocoon of blankets, everything narrowed to the places we touched. His forearm across my ribs, just beneath my breasts, his thigh wedged between mine, the unmistakable weight of him resting against the small of my back. I tried to think of his father, of the wedding photos still on the dresser across the room, of every rule I had ever believed in, but those thoughts felt thin and far away, drowned by the simple, animal fact that I was warm for the first time all night, and the source of that warmth was my own son. I must have made some small sound, because his arm tightened, pulling me even closer. His lips brushed the shell of my ear, accidental or not, I could not tell. "Mom," he whispered, so low, I almost missed it over the wind. My name, my title, the word that was supposed to keep the universe in order, but the way he said it, rough with sleep and something else, turned it into something dangerous. I did not answer. I could not. My whole body was tuned to the feel of him, to the way his hips shifted just slightly, pressing harder against me. A reflex, I told myself. He was asleep. Or half asleep. Men get hard in their sleep. It does not mean anything. But then his hand moved, slow as melting ice, sliding upward until his thumb rested just beneath the swell of my breast. Not grabbing, not yet, just there. A question hanging in the dark. I should have stopped it right then. Should have rolled away, laughed it off, reminded him who we were. Instead, I stayed perfectly still. Afraid to breathe, afraid that if I moved even an inch, the spell would break and the cold would rush back in. The candle sputtered, throwing shadows across the wall. Outside, thunder rolled like distant artillery. Inside, my heart pounded so hard I was sure he could feel it against his arm. His thumb moved, one tiny stroke against the silk, grazing the underside of my breast. Electricity shot straight to my core. I bit my lip to keep from gasping. I closed my eyes and pretended I was still a good mother, just for a little longer. I do not know how many minutes passed while we lay frozen in that dangerous stillness, his hand resting just beneath my breast, my whole body trembling with a mixture of cold and something far more alarming. Every breath he took pressed us closer. Every small shift of the mattress reminded me how little space remained between right and wrong. The storm outside had settled into a steady, punishing roar, as if the sky itself wanted to drown out whatever was happening under these blankets. His thumb moved again, one tiny, deliberate stroke against the silk. My breath caught so sharply I felt it in my throat. That single touch lit a fuse I had spent years pretending did not exist. "Mom," he whispered, lips almost brushing my ear, "if you want me to stop, say it now." The sane answer sat right there on my tongue, ready to save us both. Instead, what slipped out was the smallest, shakiest exhale that sounded far too much like permission. That was all he needed. His palm slid fully over my chest, cupping gently, reverently, as though he could not believe I was letting him. The warmth of his hand soaked through the thin fabric and went straight to my heart, which was already racing hard enough to hurt. I arched into the touch without meaning to, and when I did, my hips rolled back against him at the same time. The contact drew a low, ragged sound from his throat that vibrated through my spine. We turned toward each other in the same breath, clumsy and urgent, until we were face to face in the near dark. The dying candle painted soft gold across his cheekbones and made his eyes look impossibly deep. I saw my own confusion reflected there, guilt, hunger, terror, longing, all of it tangled together. He kissed me before I could think better of it. It was not a son's kiss. It was slow and deep and devastating, like he had waited years to taste me and was making up for lost time. I kissed him back just as fiercely, fingers twisting into his hair, pulling him closer because pulling away suddenly felt impossible. Hands started moving without permission. My nightgown rode higher. His t-shirt disappeared somewhere in the blankets. Skin met skin, and the shock of it made us both gasp into each other's mouths. He settled over me, heavy and perfect, and the weight of him felt like the most natural thing in the world. When our bodies aligned, the thin layers left between us did nothing to hide how much we both wanted this. He paused, forehead pressed to mine, breathing hard. "Tell me again," he said, voice raw. "Tell me this is okay." I could not lie. "Not anymore. It is not okay," I whispered, but I need it anyway. That was the last honest thing either of us said for a long while. Everything after that was heat and breath and quiet, desperate sounds, muffled against shoulders and pillows. The mattress creaked softly beneath us. The old radiator clanked in sympathy. Time folded in on itself until there was nothing but the storm, the dark, and the forbidden rhythm we found together. He knew exactly how to touch me, like he had studied me in secret for years. Every stroke, every press of his lips, every low murmur against my skin unraveled me a little more. When the wave finally crested, it took me so completely that I had to bite down on his shoulder to keep from crying out loud enough to wake the neighbors. He followed moments later, burying his face in my neck, holding me so tightly I could feel his heartbeat crashing against my own. Afterward, we stayed tangled together, trembling, the air thick with what we had just done. The candle gave one final flicker and went out, leaving us in perfect darkness again. I waited for the shame to hit like a tidal wave. It never came. Instead, there was only the steady thud of his heart under my palm, the warmth of his arms around me, and the quiet, terrifying certainty that the coldest night of my life had somehow become the warmest. The room was completely black now, the kind of darkness that feels alive. I could hear his breathing, still uneven, and feel the faint tremor running through his arms where they held me. My own body felt strangely weightless, as if the storm had lifted me out of myself and set me down somewhere I no longer recognized. We did not speak for a long time. There was nothing safe to say. Eventually, he pressed his forehead to my shoulder and whispered, "I am not sorry." The words should have broken me. Instead, they settled warm and heavy in my chest. "Neither am I," I answered, so quietly I was not sure he heard until his arms tightened, pulling me closer, like he was afraid I would drift away if he let go. He kissed me again, slow, careful, almost reverent, as though we had all the time in the world and none of it at the same time. When we parted, his hand found mine in the dark and laced our fingers together. The simple gesture felt more intimate than everything that had come before. Minutes slipped by, maybe hours. The wind outside had quieted to a low moan. The worst of the storm was moving on. I traced the line of his jaw with my thumb, memorizing the shape of him, the way you memorize a dream you will have to wake from. "We can't keep this," I said at last. My voice sounded scraped raw. "I know." "Tomorrow the lights come back. Daily comes back. Everything goes back." He was silent so long, I thought he would not answer. Then give me tonight. Just tonight. I turned toward him fully, sliding one leg over his until we were tangled again, chest to chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. He tucked my head beneath his chin and held me like that, palm flat against my back, counting every breath I took. I felt the moment he started to drift, his grip loosening, his breathing evening out, but I was not ready to let the night end. I pressed my lips to the hollow of his throat, tasting salt and warmth, and the faint trace of the cologne he would worn since he was 17. He stirred, instantly awake, and when his hands moved this time, they were gentle, almost apologetic, as if he were asking forgiveness with every touch. We moved together slowly, carefully, like people handling something fragile and priceless. There was no rush now, no storm to blame, only the quiet, aching certainty that this was all we would ever have. Afterward, we lay side by side, fingers still linked, staring up at the invisible ceiling. The radiator gave one last tired clank and fell silent. Somewhere far off, a transformer hummed the first sign that power was returning to the world outside our room. He rolled toward me, brushing hair from my face. "When the lights come on," he said, voice low, "I will still be your son, and you will still be my mom. Nothing that happened here leaves this bed." I swallowed hard. "Promise me you will be okay." "I will be okay," he said, and kissed my forehead like he used to when he was small, and I was the one who needed comforting. "We both will." The lamp flickered once, twice, then blazed to life, harsh and unforgiving after so many hours of darkness. We blinked against the sudden brightness, taking in the rumpled sheets, the scattered pillows, the faint marks on each other's skin that would fade long before anyone else ever saw them. He sat up first, running a hand through his hair, already slipping back into the boy I would raised. I watched him pull on his t-shirt and sweatpants. Movements quick and practiced, as if putting clothes back on could put everything else back in place too. When he looked at me again, his smile was small and careful and heartbreakingly familiar. "I will make coffee," he said. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He paused at the door, hand on the knob, and glanced back once more. For a second, the careful mask slipped, and I saw everything. Love, fear, gratitude, regret, all of it shining raw in his eyes. Then the mask settled again, gentle and unbreakable. "Love you, Mom," he said, same as he had every morning of his life. "Love you too," I answered, and somehow the words still fit. The door closed softly behind him. I sat in the wreckage of my bed a moment longer, listening to the familiar sounds of cabinets opening downstairs. The hiss of the kettle, the quiet rhythm of a normal Saturday morning beginning without us. I pulled the blankets up to my chin, breathed in the fading scent of him on the pillow, and let the tears come at last, silent, grateful, and absolutely private. Outside, the sky was turning pale gold. Inside, I was still warm,